I think Ben's kind of a holdover from John Rhodes. Let's grab him on a wild card line. Ben is in Texas. Ben?
This is Ben. Yes.
Yeah.
How you doing,
This is
buddy?
the world calling. Yeah. How's it going, Bob?
Hey, I was calling about a question for Rhodes, but I guess he's gone now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a question for you then.
Okay.
What do you think about the fact of, well, like, give me a second here. I didn't know you were going to come on the air so quick.
Well, you've only been waiting the longest, right?
Well, how do you feel about the
suspense is building?
I know, right? Well, with the Greys and the aliens, with the Greys and the
Reptilians.
Reptilians, yeah.
Okay.
Do you believe they could actually be some kind of like part of a humanoid?
I just don't. Here's what I know. I saw an object flying through the sky that nobody could identify. I know that it was put to the test with the available resources that I had back then, which wasn't, they weren't many. And nobody could ever determine what it was. I know my wife and my oldest son saw something. What's actually in those? I don't have any idea. And whereas people will talk about things that they saw, I think, unfortunately, there's too many variations for me to be able to form an opinion. I mean, if we're using just the word could, yeah, I mean, could. And who knew, for example, in the story that I mentioned when we started the show, that starfish were really bodiless heads that roll around at the bottom of the ocean. That's not their body, that's their head, which is so freaky. So who knows? I mean, nobody saw that coming. I know I didn't. Thanks, Ben. We'll get to Tim in Carson City, Nevada on Coast to Coast. Tim?
Hey, Ian, old buddy, it's good to hear you again. It's been a while since I've made contact. I'm the guy who listened to the old cassette recordings.
Oh, yeah. You're so nice. You're so nice to have done that. Ocean. I remember. Yeah. Go ahead, Tim.
Hey, good to hear you. You have great taste in music. A song I'd like to hear one night on your bumper music is Billy Thorpe.
Children of the Sun. Yeah. Here's the only problem with Billy Thorpe, right? Is that ramp at the beginning of Children of the Sun was like 4 minutes long.
Yeah, the intro was long. Yeah.
It's really long. And the record itself was like, if I remember correctly, it was like 7 minutes. It's a cool tune. Used to play it back in my FM rock jock days. I really like Children of the Sun, but it's one of those songs, and there's a couple of them that I can't really play with any with any integrity, because I would feel like I was dishonoring by having to upcut the beginning so much.
I understand. Yeah, totally.
But here's what I'll tell you. I think here's an interesting idea, and I'll throw this challenge out to Dan Galanti, who is engineering. Take the first couple minutes of Children of the Sun from from Billy Thorpe, and then use those as a bump into the bottom of the hour or the top of the hour. We can't do it coming out, but we could at least play that intro piece,
Long enough time? That'd be great. I would take it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really great song. And unfortunately, his career never really went anywhere other than that. But in the markets where that song took root, and it wasn't a universal hit. But back in the days where records could be a lot more regional than they are now, I always thought that was one song that I was always happy to play. But we couldn't even do it on Two for Tuesday because there was no other song to play with.
Your knowledge of music is astounding. Hey, a question for you. I don't know if you did the interview or years ago with John Lear. About 100 miles from Carson City is a lake called Walker Lake, and I can't find much research on the internet about it, but he mentioned that, and there's a sign, there's an underwater naval training submarine facility in the lake in the middle of the desert, and his theory was that there's underwater passageways that submarines can submerge and reemerge out in the Pacific Ocean, come inland 1,000 miles and surface up in these landlocked lakes. I wondered, do you remember anything about that? Cool.
I don't, but I'm fascinated. So I was just Googling it. Yeah, underground lake 6,000 feet deep. Well, that'd be plenty for a submarine.
They have a Navy base right near that lake. And in fact, a lot of that is one of the largest Army ammunition depots in the world on Walker Lake. They got acres and acres of bunkers full of munitions out there. And from time to time, they'll set the old ordinances off. And we used to go fishing out there and also across the lake. They'd be detonating the expired ordinances. I just wondered if you had talked.
I don't remember. If I did that show, I don't remember it. But half the time when I say that, I go, oh, yeah, when I actually go back and look at it. Yeah, so this is what you're talking about, but I had to look it up. Naval Undersea Warfare Center, 18 miles by 8 mile lake called Walker Lake. It supports the locals enjoying a swim or some fishing, but does have some kind of base along its western edge. By the time, yeah, so I don't know. I mean, it doesn't seem to be a secret.
Well, I was able to find one photograph of a submarine and a military barge, a flat barge out on the lake. Now, I don't know if they would bring the submarines in and just use them for training purposes only. That's a legitimate.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm willing to look at that. It is, yeah, and it used to be run by the Army until 1977. Then it was taken over by the Navy. But just remember this, too, about the Navy, is there's a lot of aspects to the Navy that don't require water. So a lot of naval bases aren't on water, or not even near water. So, yeah, I think that's interesting. Giant waterway that would go from that lake out to the ocean. I can't imagine that, but I think that's
in the same story. He had mentioned that there are similar things where submarines will enter the mouth of the Mississippi River and resurface way up in the interior in places I can't remember that he had mentioned, but places that you wouldn't expect. Way up in the interior of the Mississippi.
Okay. Well, I will leave it there, but really glad you brought it up. And I will take a look at it. It doesn't, it doesn't seem to be like a secret. It's just things that have been speculated about it are unproven. So maybe that accounts. But thanks. It's always good to talk to you. Ethan is in Akron, Ohio on Coast to Coast. Ethan?
Hey.
Hey.
Can you guys hear me?
Perfectly.
All right. So I wanted to start giving you guys the option. What would you like to hear about first? Would you like to hear about the origins of the human species that I've learned and been taught, or apocalypse dreams involving reptilian aliens and government project bad things, or the language keys?
Okay, wait. You're giving me the option to choose which subject you're going to tell me about.
Because I have a lot of stories, experience, opinions. I like what you guys are saying, but I heard you guys ask a couple genuine questions, and I feel like I have a little bit of light to shed. I'd like to I thought about it while I was waiting, and I narrowed it down to 3 important topics that I feel like you guys would really dig, and I could help you with, and you guys could help me with.
Okay, well, barring time, let's pick number 1. Door number 1. I choose door number 1.
All right. I kind of got the order mixed up. What was door number one? Human origin?
Yes, origin of the species.
Okay, yeah. That was really interesting. You guys were talking about that. So this is what I have concluded, what I've studied, and what I've been taught. And it's based on several theories, which are basically facts, but they run off into different areas of gray where I will say I don't know, but I'll tell you what I know. So let's just say it real simple. Aliens, different kinds, all came to Earth, and there were primate-type beings, different animals and stuff, living on the Earth. And I think 3 or so, maybe more, varied at least 3 different groups of aliens combined their DNA, or they either they did science experiments, combined their DNA, and mutated these things and made humans. Now, humans have part reptilian things in them. Like when we get sunburned and stuff, our skin gets all peely, and like the way our spine moves and shit like that. You know, Kundalini.
Okay, wait. Can't swear. Yeah, I don't know that that's a defining characteristic on the sunbathing thing, but I appreciate what you're saying, so let's just leave that there. Cannot swear on the air, please. Wild card line, Joseph is in Colorado on Coast Enough. Joseph?
Ian, how you doing?
Good. How about you?
Pretty good. Hey, I just want to tell you, my wife and I, we listen to you whenever you're on the weekends. We love hearing you.
What's your wife's name?
My wife's name's Carolyn.
Hi, Carolyn. Go ahead, Joseph.
We're here with our baby.
I love that. What's the baby's name?
We got a brand new little baby. His name's Carmela.
Hi, Carmela. Nope. Okay. All right, go ahead, Joseph.
All right, so I grew up in Littleton, Colorado, and it's probably about, I'd say, 5 minutes down the street from Lakewood, where the Federal Center is.
Right. I've been in I was just in Littleton not that long ago. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, yeah, I'll just have to say that is a massive situation they got down there.
Sure.
And it's always been like that, and it's really strange. I don't really know too much about it, but I do know about DIA. DIA Airport is very interesting. When they actually started building DIA, they actually had a real big problem with the baggage claim. All the stuff would go underneath DIA, and it wouldn't work for years. For like maybe a year or two, it was a problem with it. So they needed millions and millions of more dollars to fix the baggage claim.
Right.
And so that's one of the oddities, because you look around DIA, if you look at from an aerial or if you go from the highway, there's giant mountains of dirt just piled up everywhere.
Huh.
And it's very, very strange. Another thing about the airport, when I was going in there one time, this is years before I heard anything about this, like on TV or whatever, but there's really occultic murals of the end of the world, like in that weird stuff.
I looked at those murals because one of the first times I flew into Denver, they were just closing down the old airport, and they were transitioning to DIA. So if I remember correctly, I actually flew into the first one and flew out of the second one. And then somebody started mentioning all these murals and other stuff, which I'm not sure I saw because I don't know if they were completed. But the next time I flew in, I made a point to just kind of sit there and take those in. And I just was there a year ago going through DIA. I think DIA is a terribly designed airport. So some people really like it. I don't. I don't like the central system where you go in and like essentially just a few lines, and then you have to get through security and all of that. And but I hadn't heard about these mounds of dirt. My sister-in-law lives right by there. So what should I tell her to look for and send me a photo of?
Well, I'm sure she can send you a picture of Lucifer. You know who Lucifer is?
Right.
It's the gigantic blue horse with devil eyes that's outside the airport.
Yeah, I know the horse has become very controversial.
Actually, when it was being made, it killed its creator. It fell on top of it. And
I didn't know that. That's funny.
Yeah, well, that's weird. But you know what's even weirder is that there's an obelisk that's inside of the airport, and it says it says the New World Airport, and it has a time capsule inside of it. I'm not too sure what year it says when it can be opened, but that's really strange too. And it's an international airport, so let's say if there's some kind of national or like some kind of disaster or like some sort of emergency in the world, all these elitists can fly right into DIA if they can get on their airplanes in time. And then they can get on that underground shuttle like your guest just talked about, and they can ride it all the way to Cheyenne Mountain.
I'm not sure that any airport in a disaster, if you've got enough money and a plane, isn't an international airport. You know, I mean, I don't know that they would avoid a small... I think the size of the runway would determine the size of the plane. And I always thought that the horse thing was just because of the Broncos, right? I thought that was the only thing I thought it was in reference to. I hadn't heard that the original sculptor had gotten killed or something. But, well, I tell you what, I want to look at that other. I want to get those mounds of dirt thing. I think that's interesting. That if that's true, that there's still something going on underground. A DIA, you'd think after all this time they would have worked out those bugs. But then again, like I said, I don't think it was a very well designed airport in the first place. So in deference to Carmilla and to Caroline, I will just say thank you for your call, and I'll move on, try and squeeze in one more person before the bottom of the hour, and that would be Julie in Columbus.
Hi.
Julie, still there?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
Hi, Ian. How are you?
Good.
I saw Leo Kottke and Lyle Lovett in Newark.
Leo Kottke played at my high school. He was amazing.
He played or went there?
No, he played. He came and performed. It was just him and a guitar and a stool it was like one of those things where I was like, oh, you can do that with a guitar.
Oh, it was outstanding.
Right.
So I wasn't able to stay for the whole concert because my back was hurting, but
I'm sorry.
They just talked between each other. So he would talk. Lyle Lovett would ask him a question. Leo a question. Mr. Cox a question, and then he would tell a story and then play a song, and then Lyle Lovett would sing a song, and then they would just go back and forth.
Oh, that would have been a great show. I love it. I saw him in Minneapolis at a beautiful theater, and I love She's No Lady. That's a cool tune. All right, so we'll give you the numbers again. You can join the conversation next on Coast to Coast AM. I was just looking at that Berna website. That's really interesting. I hadn't heard about this product before. Pretty interesting to think that is an option. I guess I never thought about it, but what a market. Okay, so back to open lines coming up in just a second. And a quick reminder to tomorrow night on Coast to Coast AM. I love this guest. I love this concept. We've been holding on this for like 2 months until we got closer to Thanksgiving because we thought it was kind of a Thanksgiving thing. Christina Ward, Foods, Cults, and Religions. And in a way that kind of intersects with Robert Young Pelton and the research that he has done. He's broken bread all over the country, all over the world, with people who are adversaries and are, proclaimed national enemies. And we just hope we get his perspective on what's going on in various hot spots around the world where he has visited before. We'll do that tomorrow night on Coast to Coast. But first, Don is in Alberta on Coast to Coast. Don?
Hi, Ian.
Hey.
I was looking into that, the Burn, how they pronounce it.
Yeah, Berna non-lethal pistol or less lethal pistol.
The good thing about it is, like, I looked at all the reviews on it. Of course, a lot of the products, we can use it up in Canada, but we can't use the BBs that have the powder in them, like the red cayenne or the hot pepper or whatever.
Right.
those would be your most effective deterrent. It only comes out at 300 feet per second. I think they should crank it up to about 500. But basically, it's a paintball gun. But it's the capsules that they use. They use solid. They use ones with the hot pepper and stuff in it.
Yeah, it was interesting. The varieties of them are. I was half expecting it to be like ping pong balls or something, but yeah, cooler than that. Don, you're hanging on for open lines. Where are you going to take us?
I was going to that base down in Arizona. The question is when was that tunnel built? Because I think it was pre-existing, and the Navy just took advantage of it. But yeah, they bring their subs in to resupply them and rearm them. And
that's Nevada, by the way, not Arizona. It's okay. You're Canadian. You're forgiven. So, yeah, I maybe. I got to find out more about it. I'm really curious. It's really easy to say that this happened and that they have a special, I think I was reading in the break about a Jimmy Carter class submarine that's a smaller submarine that can navigate those kind of waters. And if they've got that, oodles of cool for them. But thank you. Pete is in Charlotte, North Carolina on Coast to Coast. Pete?
Ian, how you doing?
Doing all right. Where are you going to take us?
I want to ask you, rock and roll buddy, have you heard about Ringo Starr's new All-Star Band tour and who's in the lineup?
I haven't, but I'll tell you a Ringo Starr secret I got coming up. So he does rotate his All-Star Band. There's a few that keep popping up, but they just completed the tour for 2022, right? So here's what it says about 2023. Steve Lukather from Toto, Colin Hay, Edgar Winter. I would love that. Yeah, I mean, this is the fall tour. Get by with a little help from my friends, and it looks like it's. They're always good lineup. I think they just have great fun. Where are you located?
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Let's see. I'm trying to see if I don't see any Charlotte. You may have to go to Nashville. He's going to be playing at the Ryman.
Hey, does that lineup say if he's got Sheila E. playing drums in it or not?
Now you're talking my language. I love her. She's an amazing percussionist. It does not say that here, but she's one of those people who I'd mentioned earlier who often recurs. I got a heads up on a guest who is an expert on Ringo Starr drum kits. And,
really?
Yeah, I thought it's going to make a fun, first hour sometime or a Friday night show. And he's an expert to the point where he's got the drum heads, actual official drum heads, and he's got a Ringo Starr drum museum. And I don't know. It looked really interesting. I love drumming. I love Ringo. I like the Beatles. I mean, how can you lose with that? So, working on it. We actually put out a feeler for that and see whether or not we can get that date somewhere on our calendar coming up. James is in Virginia in Newport News on Coast to Coast AM. James?
Hi, Ian. How do I spell your first name?
I-A-N.
I-A-N. I was not sure if it was an E or an I at your first. Hey, I just wanted to let you know, I called George a fair amount of times, and he reminded me a little bit more recently. He mentioned when he was quite young, he was on the second floor of a building, sleeping there. I'm not sure if that was an apartment or what, but apparently his parents were on the floor above, and there was a fire in the bottom mattress part of the store down below, and there was a man that was standing over him, some kind of fireman, and told him, hey, you got to get up and you got to go upstairs and get the people out upstairs also. And by the time that all happened, when he went back to talk to the fire department, they said, hey, we wanted to thank, the guy that did that, that warned him. And they said, well, we never got up to the second floor. So ever since George was thinking, is that a ghost or an angel, And it reminded me of my experience with my mother. She had a very unusual death. She had three times died with her heart stopping and came back 3 times the day she went in. And she had a cat that we had put in the garage when she had asthma before she went in. And the cat was always sleeping on the bed at night. So my next oldest brother said, why don't you put the cat in the garage and get it away from her so she can breathe better?
Right.
I did that. I put him in the garage, and the next morning the cat had died in the garage. He was laying on the floor, if you can imagine, like a little bit of oil, and just he was very weak when I put him in. So then I went to the hospital when she had the breathing tube removed, and then she could talk for the first time, and she saw us, and anyway, she wanted to know where are the cats, because she had like 3 other cats, and I told her, well, Blackie's in the garage, and these other cats are such and such places, and we'll go home and get Blackie out of the garage. First thing you do, get him out of there, because she didn't want another cat dying in the garage. So when she passed away at the end of the week, but she lived about a week, and they thought she was going to come out of the hospital okay, but she ended up dying about a week later. And after she passed away, I went in and I saw her and came out, and in the hallway there was this, and I don't know how it would be in the hallway, but a beautiful desk with a woman sitting behind the desk, and it was a nurse, and she had like a gorgeous desk and a rail and a kind of thing around the front, like a fence kind of thing in front of the desk, so you couldn't get that close to her, but not that you want to, but I mean, she had that setting there. And she wanted to know, she said, your mother had a last question. And I said, what was that? She said, did you get the cat out of the garage? And I can't remember if she said, got Blackie out of the garage or just the cat, you know. But anyway, I said, oh, yeah, I did. I got him out of the garage. So I went around later, and I talked to the lady who, she's this nurse, the main one in charge of patients, really, in the ICU. And she called her miracle patient, the hospital's miracle patient before that anyway. And when I asked her, I said I wanted to thank the lady who, the nurse, who I think she was Mexican. I told her that got the last question from my mother. So, and she went around the whole floor, and she came back and she said, "There's no Mexican person that works here, and besides that, Mr. My last name, I can guarantee you, your mother didn't leave any question for anybody." So I figured that was my mother. That makes sense. She's a very good animal lover, and she wanted to make sure that cat was out of the garage. And that was the one thing when she saw her sons that she didn't ask about that when she saw us. But I'm sure the nurse, the angel that came to get her must have said, "Are you ready to go this time, Eleanor?" And, after that was 3 times before. And she said, "No, I need to know. Just need to know. Otherwise, about the cat in the garage. Did my son get the cat out of the garage?" And I'm sure the angel would have said, "Well, if I get that information and directly relay it to you, are you ready to go?" And I'm sure she would have agreed to that. So I think that's what truly happened. And George's experience sounded very much like mine, because it was help from the supernatural, if you want to call it that, And I ended up writing a book on it, Ian, and it ended up with the book not only having that in there, but it has a lot of this revelation and things in the end of times that we're going through.
What's the book called?
I appreciate that. If I was going to ask you, it'd be okay to say it. I asked the Holy Spirit to help me write the book, too, because it's very blessed. It's much more than I could have written. There's no way I could have written this book, and it's even got humor in it that I couldn't even come up with. It's called Blessed with an Angel and a Rainbow. The angel refers to my mother, but it also tells you how to build your armor of God, which is what you need in the end here, because we're in very serious times here, and it's just going to get worse till the rapture comes and takes the Christians out of here. And I hope that you and everybody else realize that this is all relating to, I think of it as like the earth is like a rotten apple. It's a beautiful apple, but now it's turning kind of rotten, and it's Jesus going to come and take all the people out of here, and then what's going to be left is all the what is called the ungodly people on the earth, and they'll end up being punished even more from above.
Remember, just it's not up to us to determine. I mean, accepting the scenario of Perugia, it's not up to us to determine who God will take. So you say all the Christians. I don't believe that for a second. And I think actually what Jesus said on that is something I live by every day, which is, and the last shall be first, and the first shall be last. We have no idea. Just keep your head down, keep trying to do the right thing, be the right person, and let's leave the rest up to whatever happens after that. And I don't know, if you really look at World War II and some of the other stuff, I don't know that we're worse off than we were or have been in other times. But I appreciate that perspective. Scott is in Costa Mesa, west of the Rockies, on Coast to Coast. Scott?
Hey, Ian. You sent me down a rabbit hole with your opening of the show with the possibility of starfishes being walking, crawling heads.
Okay. Isn't that trippy?
Well, it is. And, I think it was Gene Roddenberry who wanted an artist rendering a poster of what an alien would look like on some other planet, like, say, Mars. And the artist came up with some humanoid-looking creature that was really too close to our configuration. So Gene had the artist revisit it and think completely out of the box, and what he came up with was a rendering sort of like the top of a jellyfish that crawled across the topography with starfish-like legs sifting the soil for food. And it was a very interesting poster, so I can kind of understand sort of what our Earth starfish, could be like that, and it's quite possible.
Yeah, I couldn't help but think about the starfish that was in Suicide Squad, and that concept of the space starfish coming back and growing. So this Japanese thing about taking small things and turning them into monsters. But yeah, I was unprepared for it being a head, just a head, just a bodiless head.
Well, and then that got me to thinking of we're still in the shadow of Halloween, and I started thinking of the movie The Thing, which is a great
Love The Thing. Which version?
Well, the one with Goldie Hawn's husband.
Yeah, Kurt Russell. That is a great version.
Yeah. Well, when the guy's head got severed off and then legs sprouted from it and it walked out of the room.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
terrifying.
I agree. I totally agree with that. I was comparing that with the first version, the black and white version, or even the later kind of version. I don't know quite how to describe it. But yeah, I'm big on that Kurt Russell. I was watching it 2 months ago. Middle of the night, I saw it there, and I'm like, I'm doing it. And I just sat down and watched the last 45 minutes.
And if I could go on a little bit, too, also there's a movie called Species where
it's okay.
Beautiful woman who is an alien, but she goes through a metamorphosis in like the back of a train and stuff.
Right.
And I love nature, and I've got actually caterpillars that are spinning their cocoons right now.
Oh, cool.
And it's so amazing to see a species change from one thing into another, and they're three totally different configurations. And this is just a little caterpillar. And what if aliens could do that or whatever? And the possibilities out there are just phenomenal.
Yeah, careful that you don't sound like you're from Silence of the Lambs or something like that. You know?
No, I'm not.
Gotta be really careful. But whatever you do, don't be. There's probably some songs you should avoid when you're listening to that.
Fava beans for me.
There you go. All right, let me get to. Let's see, Beaumont, Texas is Vaughn. Take us up to the top of the hour, at least coast to coast. Go ahead, Don. Vaughn?
Vaughn, yes. I didn't call about this, but you said the starfish is a head that moves around. It doesn't have a heart?
No, everything it needs is in its head.
But it's no heart there? Or what?
No. It has some sort of, rudimentary vascular system.
Our bodies as being a head transporter. I didn't find it very unusual. But anyway, what I called about was the Roundup in foods that's causing issues that people are not associating with their ailments.
That's interesting. Like what?
One of them, it chelates manganese, and I started supplementing with manganese and glycine, and my backaches went away.
Good.
Especially sleeping on different types of surfaces, and I knew beforehand that lack of manganese causes laxity in the joints, in the back area and stuff.
Right.
But I had never supplemented with it. Anyway, it chelates manganese, glycine, zinc, which is, when men are low in that, then they are susceptible to prostate cancer because, it has a role in the peripheral zone in the prostate, and also boron. It chelates. A lack of that causes a lack of testosterone, and we have a lack of that in today's society.
Yeah, all sorts of reasons for that.
And fertility problems also with the lack of manganese. Now,
I accept. Go ahead. No, just go ahead.
Yeah, Cheerios is very, very high in that, and so if you have people, especially kids and older adults or whoever, they need to stay away from Cheerios. It's the highest measurable amount of Roundup, in that.
Okay, well, I almost had some the other day because I have this honey nut Cheerios.
Yeah, that's one of the worst.
I poured a bowl of it, and then I realized it was pumpkin spice honey nut Cheerios.
Yeah. One last thing,
gotta be quick here, dude, because honestly, I'm out of time. But you can't just keep doing that. But go ahead.
Okay, very, very quickly. I like to direct people towards Coast to Coast YouTube. Especially decoding Sasquatch language.
Okay.
I've transcribed accurately the Sierra sounds, and if anybody think that is real, look under Coast to Coast AM official comment under, and my reply is under there with minute, second dictates.
Okay, well, that's all the time I got. But Vaughn, I appreciate that, and let me see if I get to Dan. No time for Dan. Okay, see. All right, Dan, if you'll hang on in West Salem, Wisconsin, and John in Newfoundland, we'll get you first up coming up in our last hour of open lines. And it's not that it just like, especially, you got to let me drive this ship. Don't, in that sense, this is your chance to drive the topics, but you got to let me get to the breaks, man. Don't want to be late. On Coast to Coast AM, this is Ian Punnett.